We've got loads to pack into this week's GCN Racing News Show with the final spring classic, Liege Bastogne Liege, plus La Flèche Wallonne, the tours of the Alps and Croatia, and slightly more left field, we've got the Dirty Reiver in the north of the UK and the Rasputitsa over in Vermont. Liege Bastogne Liege is the oldest of cycling's 5 monuments. This year marked the 104th edition of the race, which started way back in 1892. We really didn't get much in the way of action this year though until the Cote de Roche or Faucons, where Quickstep, who had been controlling the peloton for much of the race, launched Philippe Gilbert up the road. Whilst the move was relatively short-lived, it did set the tone as teammate Bob Jungels was the next to go, taking Michael Woods and Sergio Henao with him, as well as Jakob Fuglsang. Over the top, there was a little bit of a regrouping, but Jungels ploughed on at the front and, almost unknowingly, suddenly found himself with quite a significant gap with 20 kilometres still remaining. Behind, there was a distinct lack of collaboration amongst the team leaders left in the group, and combined with the fact that there was also a distinct lack of domestics to do any chasing, it meant that Jungels soon carved out an unassailable lead. Jungels became the first Luxembourger since Andy Schleck to win the race. He did so back in 2009. Meanwhile, behind, Mike Woods managed to get a famous second place for Canada and EF Education first by outsprinting Romain Bardet, who took his first ever monument podium position. It marked the biggest win of Jungels' career though, and the 27th win of Quickstep's quite remarkable season. As a team, they obviously specialise in the Spring Classics, and their record at those races over the last 15 years really is something to behold. It was the second running of the women's event where 135 riders started the 136 kilometre race. Here, the action hotted up far earlier than the men's race. In fact, there were only 20 riders still in contention as they crested the Côte de la Redoute. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot decided that was the right time to go solo off the front, building up a lead of close to a minute. However, she was then caught on the Roche or Faucons. Then, after a flurry of attacks, we eventually had another solo leader. This time it was Amanda Spratt from Mitchelton Scott. The Australian also managed to carve out a near 1 minute advantage and was looking strong. However, there was nothing that she nor anybody else could do against the current dominance of Anna van der Breggen. The Olympic champion caught Spratt with around 5 kilometres still remaining and then dropped her with an acceleration on the final climb to the line. So that makes it 2 wins from 2 for van der Breggen at Liege Bastogne Liege and her 4th win from 6 one-day races so far this season. She really is on another level right now. And as voted for by you on Twitter, van der Breggen is this week's Rider of the Week. On to La Flèche Wallonne now, which takes place on the Wednesday preceding Liège. And the news there is that the king has been dethroned. Alejandro Valverde has made that race his own over the last few years, but Wednesday saw something of a changing of the guard. Despite some particularly aggressive racing from the likes of Vincenzo Nibali, we had the usual sprint up the Mur de Huy to finish, albeit with the smallest group we've seen for many, many years. All eyes were on the Spaniard Alejandro Valverde, but in the end, it wasn't even close. He looked slightly out of position, but he clawed his way back to the wheel of Alaphilippe. However, when the Frenchman accelerated again, Valverde had no answer. Alaphilippe becoming the first French rider to win the race for 21 years. So, has Valverde lost his power? Well, the answer to that is no. It was just an incredible performance from Alaphilippe. Mihai Kazuka tweeted Valverde's times from the years that he's won, as well as this year as well. So, Alaphilippe, as you can see, would have been quicker every time except in 2014, which is pretty interesting. Valverde averaged 524 watts for close to 3 minutes on the climb and an incredible 725 watts for 18 seconds as he tried to get on terms with Alaphilippe towards the top. That according to a tweet from Amati Piraili. Special mention also to Quickstep teammate Max Schachmann. He'd been away with Vincenzo Nibali and still managed to hold on for an eventual 8th place. Chapeau to you, sir. Still reigning as queen of the Mur de Huy though is Anna van der Breggen. She seemed to have everything more than in control as she took her 4th victory in a row in the race, on her birthday to boot. She'd been able to sit pretty in the group on the final run into the finish with her teammate Megan Garnier up the road, having followed a move that also included Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Amanda Spratt. But there was no beating van der Breggen, who won with as much ease as you possibly can on such steep gradients. A strong ride from Ashley Moolman-Pasio saw her take 2nd place, whilst Garnier had enough left in the tank to finish 3rd. The Tour of the Alps marked the return of Chris Froome to competition as he gradually builds towards the Giro d'Italia, but fourth on stage 2 and fourth in the overall GC was the best that he could manage. It was a little bit of a Team Astana show over the first few days, with Paulo Bilbao, Luis Leon Sanchez and Miguel Angel Lopez taking stages 1, 2 and 4 respectively. There was some superbly consistent riding though from Thibaut Pinot, and that was enough to give him the overall title. He might not have won a stage, but he did finish in the top 6 on all 5 stages and eventually beat Domenico Pozzovivo by 15 seconds. Pinot described the win as the most beautiful of his career, and there's no doubt he loves racing in Italy. As journalist Daniel Friebe points out, he's had 6 starts there in stage races since 2015 and he's finished in the top 5 in every single one. There were a couple of standout performances from young riders at that particular race. Firstly, Ivan Ramiro Sosa, yet another young Colombian climbing talent at just 20 years of age, was third on both the opening 2 stages and also held the leader's jersey for a day on top of that. And also, there's 22-year-old Ben O'Connor of Team Dimension Data. He won stage 3 and stuck with the favourites on the other days as well, finishing in 7th place overall. No doubt we will be hearing a lot more from those two over the next few years. Before we finish with pro racing for the week, a few other notable mentions as it's been a very busy week in pro racing. Konstantin Sitsu of Bahrain Merida won the 6-day Tour of Croatia in a race where experience certainly won over youth. Sitsu is now 35 years of age, whilst runner-up Peter Weening is 37. 38-year-old Ruben Plaza won the Vuelta a Castilla-Leon, whilst Giulio Ciccone won the 1-day Giro del Apennino. And now for something a little different. Rasputitsa is a Russian term used to describe the season where roads become so muddy they're almost unusable. But it's also a short but grueling cycling event over in Vermont in the USA. Organisers describe it as a psychotic 40-mile insane drop to your knees and cry sufferfest, and their claims were backed up by competitors, many of whom said it was the hardest 40 miles that they had ever done. The course includes 4,500 feet of climbing and 2 snow-covered off-road sections. In the men's event, Kevin Bouchard-Hall triumphed in a time of just over 2.5 hours, whilst Alison Tetrick took the women's in just over 2 hours and 40 minutes. And now over to Northumberland in the north of the UK for the Dirty Reiver. This is a 200-kilometre gravel grinder style event which attracted a diverse list of entrants and also quite a diverse list of bikes. Everything from fat bikes to fixies to gravel bikes and pretty much everything in between. 750 riders started this year's event, which was held under some balmy 25-degree conditions. As riders reached the split point where you decide if you're going to do the shorter or the long route, they were chased by Chicken Boy if they dropped down a distance, or by Banana Man as a reward for choosing the full 200 Ks. First rider across the finish line was Duncan Warner in a little over 7 hours, whilst Josh Ibbott, who was bike packing last week in Morocco with our very own Cy Richardson, finished as runner-up. Right, that's all for this week. Next week is the official start of stage race season now as we gradually build towards the Giro d'Italia. In fact, you probably haven't missed the fact that I've got a special Giro d'Italia t-shirt on right now. So if you'd like to purchase one yourself, you can head over to shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com. Next week we'll be back reporting on the Tour of Romandy as well as the Women's World Tour, which continues at the Tour of Chongming Island. In the meantime, if you would like to find out what these pro riders might be doing if they weren't pro cyclists, we pose that question to them in a video that you can find just here.